Okay, we're going to wait a little bit, see if anybody else is going to come, and we're going to allow the broadband to kind of adjust itself. I'm outside, so you're going to have a lot of ambient noises with traffic. I was not able to get the room I usually can get, so we're just going to have to deal. But welcome. So as this is a strategy webinar, I am not going to be taking any comments. I'm going to do an AMA session later tonight, in which case you can ask me anything about this. But for right now, what I'm going to do is just map out for you what human behavior pattern looks like with history events and today events so that you can actually see what's going on. Hey, so the first step of kind of getting your mind into clarity is understanding exactly what's happening. So it's identifying the problem, in which case we do have World War III happening, which has been happening for 3 years. The reason you have not been seeing it is because of the battlegrounds are different than your typical war. This war's battleground is investment deals, which is monopolization of investment markets, and also psychological manipulation through sources such as cyber. This is the human element part of it. It is not the technical side where hacking and things like that. It's literally a mind hack where people can mind hack your mind using very ancient propaganda techniques that has been around since 6th century BC. What theater artists do, and which me being a theater engineer, I'm very well aware of these tricks. So the first step in this strategy webinar is just clarity of events. So what is happening? World War III, happening 3, maybe 4 years. They are. And the reason is, I see I'm going to be taking comments anyways. I'm going to try not to because I'm going to keep this simple and precise, and I don't want to, your brain can only process 7 bits of information at any one time, and if I'm hitting you with a bunch of new information, it will literally shut down your brain. So I want to keep this as simplistic and to the point and non-emotional as possible. So we'll talk about this later tonight. We'll have the conversation side of it. But for right now, this is the logistical, logical things that are happening that you're not seeing because of the gaslighting of that psychological warfare that's happening. So what we're going to do, I'm going to walk you through the events. We're going to talk about history because it's a pattern that we saw in history and it's happening again today. And once you see it in history, you will recognize it. We're going to strip it down from all its labels so you're going to see exactly what it is. So we have identified the fact that we're in World War III, that this battleground is investment deals, investment monopolization, and psychological manipulation using a human element of people pretending to be that nation's citizens in order to create distrust and hate and all this just violence and also an emotional tension. If you're constantly reacting emotionally, you're no longer thinking rationally. So getting you to constantly be responding emotionally not only wears you down mentally, but it also will create a gaslighting effect, which is a reality distortion. So makes you feel dazed and confused and can make you question everything of your own capabilities and everything going on. It's incredibly insidious, it's incredibly effective, but it's also fragile. And it is removed as soon as you recognize the patterns, which is why this strategy webinar is so important. It's going to show you the patterns that you're not seeing. So let's start with what's happening. 2013, Russia and China decided to ally together in order to regain their old world powers. When were the old world powers lost? 1945, after the World War II. So let's talk about history. Oh, I do have a Cash App now. You can sponsor my efforts by Play Aries, and that's me as an artist, and I'm hoping you can see this. Unfortunately, I do not have the room. I'm going to be playing with the light, the natural light. But this is the pattern that we see in history. So let's go back to what started at World War II events and Hitler's reign. We had a pattern of God being used as a scapegoat. We had Hitler telling the Christians in Germany that the Jews were killers of Christ and that they needed to be eradicated because they were evil. We had evangelicals and Catholics spreading the propaganda throughout the world using their resources. We also had a situation where that religious group was targeted, which were the Jews. We had widespread human suffering, which were the concentration camps, and also the rounding up of homosexuals was also included, and anyone who was political allies was also included. We had a consolidation of wealth happening. If you remember, they were taking, during those war efforts, they were scavenging the museums. They were taking all the art cultural out of it. They were burning books. They were trying to destroy knowledge as much as possible. They were creating a war against the arts and anything humanitarian, anything humanities during that time. We had a consolidation of power happening, where Hitler's group was only a minority group at the beginning, and throughout those years he was able to amass power as he was able to push out more and more people who were opposed to his reign. And then we had war. The thing about the war was Hitler was he had an antisocial disorder. He wasn't I don't know if he was a psychopathic narcissist, but he was a narcissist of the extreme. And because of that, he did not plan for the war, the economic necessity of that war. So he ran out of money. The reason the USA got into that war is because Japan attacked us. Had Japan not attacked us, we would not have gotten involved. But Japan had attacked us, brought USA fresh, with fresh supplies, fresh military, into a war that was already economically depleted. They did not plan enough. France was already economically destroyed by World War I. All the other groups had already spent a lot of money. Military is incredibly expensive. It will wipe out economies. So as this war was engaging for those years, it wasn't until the USA entered the war with fresh supplies, and that is one reason we were able to monopolize the marketing industry, or the manufacturing industry, because the men went to war, the women went into the factories. We were supplying the ammo, we were building the ammunition and the military equipment and all of that. So that gave us a lot of economic benefits for the USA. And that's why a lot of people think that war is good for the USA, when really war in any kind of form is incredibly expensive if it's done in your own nation, and it will wipe out your economy. It's not good for anybody. It destroys lives. But these are the things that were happening. So we had God as the scapegoat. We had a propaganda campaign that was morally justifying it on the religious level. We had religious groups that were targeted, homosexuals targeted, political allies targeted, poor people targeted, the widespread human suffering from those targets, the consolidation of wealth, the consolidation of power, the war that eventually happened, but the ending. Now, if you're a religious person and if you understand the Bible, you can, if you know the prophecies of the Bible, you can orchestrate events to make it look like an Armageddon. And so this was the Armageddon of 1940s. This is what people were being told, that it was Armageddon, it was justified, and this had to happen. If you look in the Bible in James 5, it's the ending of Armageddon, where God hears the cries of the exploited people and the 1% fall down hard. That is your Armageddon surprise ending, and that is why the old world powers were lost, or that at least during the pattern, that's what happened. Old world powers were lost. USA came fresh into the war, the surprise element, and was able to gain control of the war, win the war, and gain all the economic glory. That is why Russia and China is ticked off at the USA, because they believe we stole their old world powers. So in 2013, they allied together. And in this alliance, they said they were going to recontrol the economic industry, the global industry, and they were going to push out the United States. Let's look at it today. Same pattern. I mean, I don't even have to change this, really. We can use the exact same graphic. We have God used as a scapegoat right now. And if you look at any kind of religion, I've been talking to people all over the world about their religions, and their religious Armageddon is being used to justify everything that's happening right now. So making people believe the end of the world is happening and that everything is necessary. It's the exact same thing that was going on in the 1940s. We have the propaganda groups, the religious organizations that's out there telling people that the end of the world is happening and this is all justified. Especially with the coronavirus, we're seeing that being religiously justified. We're seeing everything, all the human suffering being religiously justified. Here in the United States, we're actually breaking God's big love law of loving your neighbor, where Christ used an immigrant as the example, and it's being justified as God's will. So you can see how people can use this religious propaganda in order to justify things that harm humans. necessary to get people to not even pay attention to what's going on or even be involved in the hurting of humans. This happened in 1945. We are seeing it again today, or 1934. I didn't go back far enough. But, I'm not great with dates. Look it up. Beginning of Nazis' reigns to the end of World War II and the events that are happening. That's what we're talking about. And now we're talking about 2013, this alliance. We have a religious propaganda campaign going on, not just with Christianity, but also with Muslims, with Jews, with just across the world, even with Hindus, I've heard. So every single religion is being told that the end of the world is happening and everything that you're seeing right now is morally justified by your gods. And the target is the group that has the money, in which case I believe it's the Muslims. So they're trying to push them out, gain controlling interest of all their finances, gain controlling interest of all their power, gain controlling interest of their lands. If you've been following OPEC, the recent news on OPEC is that alliance of Russia and Saudi Arabia is starting to fray. So we can see the same things that were happening then, happening now, being a religious justification to hide it. We have the widespread human suffering. Here in the United States, we have kids in cages. We have separated kids from their parents. We did not keep track where they are. We do not plan on keeping track where they are because the religious groups are selling them for cash. That also ties into the anti-abortion laws. And if you look at the hypocrisy of the lawmakers, there is no financial set aside for the human population boom that's going to happen if you force women to have babies. And they did not address the men's participation part that's necessary to have a baby. When there's hypocrisy, if you look at my other podcasts, when there's hypocrisy, then there's always going to be a money trail. I'm going to take a little moment. Well, I'm going to finish this out. We'll take a little. I'll give you a little joke brief. So the consolidation of wealth is happening. The consolidation of wealth. If you've been following the Petro-Yuan currency scheme, we have Kushner and Secretary Mnuchin, who's been going to Saudi Arabia's that Saudi Davos summit, in which case they were trying to push this Petro-Yuan. We have oil industries that are trying to adjust to a Petro-Yuan currency standard of gold. That would destroy the U.S. dollar because right now the U.S. dollar is the petrodollar gold. That would destroy our U.S. dollar. That will sink our economy. While things are happening, we also have the U.S. corporations trying to move their toxic, cheap factories out of China. And instead of telling them that they need to be ethically conscious, they need to be workman conscious, they need to be consumer conscious, our politicians here in the United States are pushing this marketing slogan of job-killing regulations. Job-killing regulations in a factory are the things that protect the workers and the community and the environment from that factory. That is truth. That is how it works. This whole idea that Trump was saying that he was protecting the environment more than anyone else because he was removing the regulations is false. It is no way you can protect the environment by removing the regulations out of factories that will cheat, that will do shortcuts, that will do whatever is necessary to gain more money, not for the workers, not for the people involved in that factory, but the corporate shareholders who support that factory only because they're using a debt plan. It's amazing. If you ever find that book, Extreme Money, Extreme Money, the cult of, what is it? Extreme Money, just reading it yesterday. Anyways, it's Extreme Money, and it's the history of the cult of debt or something like that. Anyways, they will walk you through it. They will walk you through the entire history of currency manipulation schemes in Japan, how it was done in other places, how it was done in the United States, how the Russian Ayn Rand ended up replacing the economic plan of the founding fathers, how investors will now use debt. They will only invest 10% in a company or a factory and then gain the rest of the capital out of debt. So 10% actually invested, 90% out of debt, and then they will manipulate the market so that they end up screwing over the factory and they're gaining all this money so they can take $10 million investment and turn it into $770 million investment. It's amazing what people can do with debt and not even have to put any money up front. This is happening, and these are the job-killing things that happens that destroys factories, destroys jobs, puts people on layoffs, does all the restructuring, destroys jobs in the United States is that very thing. It's not job-killing regulations on factories. Those are the things that protect the workers. Those are the things that protect the environment. Those are the things that keep those factories in line. If you look at China labor reports, you will see a huge list of all the labor violations, and a majority of them are committed by U.S. corporations and their factories in China. If you look at China's history or their current plan, the 7-year war, pollution war with Chairman Tsai, you're going to see that those factories are getting shut down. The toxic factories were shut down 2018. The labor violation factories are getting nailed. They are now investing in green technology. China is now investing in worker and consumer conscious. The people of China can now sue their manufacturers. They've never been able to do this before. The Ministry of Education is kicking out the private investors out of that industry, and they're saying you no longer have power over it, and they're moving to the United States because our kids are cash cows for corporate shareholders. What we are seeing from the 1945 is exactly what we are seeing now. And if you look at my podcast with the coronavirus, we can see how China's supply chain is being cut. Those factories can move over to the United States without any question. And the Petro One currency manipulation scheme can happen right in front of our faces, and we are too scared to even notice. We're too worried about our kids getting some kind of disease that's going to kill them. This is what we're in. And whenever you look at the alliance of China and Russia, we're looking at two dictators who do not give a crap about their people. And so there is no wonder that these things, such horrific, barbaric things, could be the result when people who are allied together to regain their old world power, where the USA is the threat to that old world power, would possibly use their people and destroy their people in order to gain that control. This is what we're seeing. This is what we're talking about. Now, the logical side, if you ignore all the emotions, if you ignore all the political party bullcrap, and you look at investments, because I said World War III is investments. The investors cannot hide their investments. If they do, they shut themselves off to the potential investors. So they have to hide it with emotional deception. Since the political party games, the two parties vying at each other, turning everything into political party. United States of America is not a stupid political party. We're a government structure in which the people have authority of power of the nation. And it says, we are instructed by our founding fathers that if that balance of power, if anything ever happens to it, we have the authority to bring back all that delegated power that we gave out to the representatives that we nominate into power. We can pull that power back. We can divide ourselves into as many counties and states as necessary in order to maintain the structure of balance of power of the United States of America. The founding fathers specifically designed this nation to stop tyrants, to prevent despotism, which is power in order to have power, to prevent all the things that they saw in their world histories past. The United States is structured in tiers for a reason, and the people are given power under that 10th Amendment. Anything not given to the federal governments and not given to the state governments under the U.S. Constitution is given to the people. We have power of our nation because we are of, for, and by the people. So that's why USA has a very central role in this. Because if we understand that power, if we understand our rights, if we understand that a U.S. government is not a political party game, if we look at the investment deals and we can see the oil benefactors who have bought Congress, we can see the real estate benefactors who have bought Congress. We can understand how a pro bono lobbying scheme where the corporations can have their pro bono lobbyists access Congress, and then they can bribe Congress in front of our faces with a corporate PAC for elections. Because the ethical committees that regulate the elections and the lobbying are not talking to each other. They are not under the same jurisdictional branch. And so where you're monitoring the lobbying, you don't have to declare yourself a lobbyist until you make $500 as a lobbyist. So they can monitor that, and then at the same time, the corporate PACs can bribe the politicians for doing exactly what the lobbyists said. You do this for me, and we'll give you a corporate PAC, and we'll make sure that you have power. If you look at the BRI, it's the exact same thing that's happening. China's coming into the global leaders and promising them this political glory if they go along with that Belt and Road investment scheme. All you have to do in order to see everything going on right now is ignore the emotions, ignore the back and forth. I mean, literally, we have a bunch of kids playing these stupid games. In fact, right now in the United States, we have potential President A with impotent President B pretending that they're doing lifesaver battles just like they were 12 years old. Now, I don't know if there's like a brain degeneration thing or if it's a whole reality TV that they're just kind of capitalizing on and expecting people to be so dumbed down that they can't see what's obvious, that a bunch of grown-ass men are acting like kids. But, you know, if you look at shock for shock's sake, you eventually reach a point where the audience gets bored with that and they start noticing the details. So I'm here to show you the details. Little joke break to kind of ease us out of this, because I don't want to make this too long. But do follow those OPEC oil investments, and you're going to see Russia and Saudi, which used to be allied together with that. Well, let me give you a break. Let me give you a brain break. I used to give my students a brain break with class because you just need a little time to process. Because we talked about, so I'll do a little summary. We talked about world history. We talked about the patterns that we saw where God was used as a scapegoat to justify the Armageddon of 1945. We talked about how we're seeing those exact same patterns being done today with a different group targeted. This time, instead of Jews, the Muslims are now targeted. Islam and Muslim. If you look at the religious aspect of that, if you go back to Abraham, you will find Isaac is part of the Jewish culture. Ishmael, Abraham's other son, who was also part of that same inheritance promise, is part of the Islam culture. So it's still, Abraham is still the father of both of these groups that have been warring together, trying to say that they are the chosen ones, when really it's the same father. And if you look at who Abraham worshipped, it's the same God. And if you look at Christianity, well, Jesus is in relation to Abraham, that whole line. And Jesus was the rebel who basically said, hey, you guys all can be involved because, you know, I'm God and everybody is invited to this party. So we have these huge religious groups, Muslims and Jewish and Christianity, and they're vying at each other's throat for history, time and time and time again, trying to prove that they are the chosen one, when really it is the same God and the same Father that, the inheritance that was promised to. It's very interesting. So when you look at the logistics of religion, this is what you're going to find. If you go back to the hereditary part, you're going to find this place where they all come together. And so it's like, why are you fighting each other? You're all part of this big party. Everybody's involved. Let's live and let live. So a little fun little anecdote is my daughter today. She was I was trying to make a game so that we could get her dressing better and quicker. And I was like, okay, here it is. So mommy's going to go in the other room, and she's going to put on her my shoes and my socks. And I was like, and you have to put on your shoes and your socks, and we're going to see who wins. Well, that little girl, she used the damsel in distress routine, a mommy card on me. And she said, Mommy, come here, I need your help. So I had to stop what I was doing and then put on her shoes and socks so that she won. And she told me she specifically did that. She's like, I thought of that up, Mommy. But she also did a wandering in the woods strategy where she started not paying attention, and I got frustrated. I was like, look, I'm going to go do my thing. So she was doing the damsel distress routine to get me to stop doing what I was doing so that I would help her win. But then she got sidetracked because she's just young. But I was quite impressed by her strategic planning at such a young age already. I think she's going to do really good. So a little brain break, little fun little thing. One last thing I want to talk about, and that is the OPEC investments in the BRI. So the BRI I've basically covered in a podcast. Let's talk about OPEC. OPEC is not your father's OPEC anymore. It was an alliance of Russia and Saudi Arabia, which had gained control of the entire oil distribution network. And there was a contract that said the OPEC oil cooperation contract, where people signed it, and there was about 14 cartels. It had also North Korea, China, Russia, all these different nations that had signed this that basically said we were going to be allied together to protect these oil deals. But what we found that really the one that was being protected was Russia oil deals. If you look at the military moves, you're going to find at the end of that, Russia oil deal is accomplished. Ukraine, we have Gazprom that gained the control of Ukraine. Venezuela, we have, I can't remember the exact oil company, but we did have Russia making that oil deal with Maduro, in which case Russia brought over their mercenaries immediately after, including nuke bombers that are now in distance of the United States of America. We have, if you look at all these military engagements that's been happening in the Middle East, and if you look at the firearm investments of that, you're going to see a very strong presence of Russia and China in the Middle East, capitalizing on all the infrastructure and military and firearms investments there, and also making it so that they can, with the cyber tech industry that China is trying to dominate, they can now strategically locate where our U.S. bases are, and under that guise of a military conflict in the military East, actually wipe out our U.S. military piece by piece. These are very serious things that are happening. Remember, United States of America is the thing that took the power of the guys who now want it back. We are the threat. We cannot afford to act like a bunch of reality star idiots or a bunch of 12-year-olds with the stupid name calling. We are the threat. So if we don't get our heads out of our butts, we're going to find ourselves in a serious problem, because we're not going to have any money left to defend ourselves when the war comes to our borders, and it will come to our borders. We have China right now that has the oil monopolization of Mexico. We have Russia right now that won the drilling rights of that oil in Mexico. Everything is hiding behind the oil deals. Do you think dictators who have allied together in order to regain control of the economic power of the that they believe the United States stole are going to share the oil wealth with the United States? Or are they going to tell the U.S. politicians who are bought by oil, if they give them this power, they will turn their states into kingdoms within the United States of America? Remember, investors lie. They use a false promise of salvation in order to gain power. They lie. This is what they do. And so World War III is an investment war. But we're getting to the part where it's going to be the military war. Once that consolidation of wealth and power happens, going back to our chart, once you have, because we have that widespread human suffering, we have a consolidation of wealth, we have a consolidation of power happening, war ends up happening. War is the next part. And so if we have that consolidation of power, if the United States loses that dollar control, that global currency control, the next part, our politicians will no longer be useful to China and Russia, and war will come to our borders, and we won't have any money because Trump took all that money and put it into his Trump resorts. His grifters and cabinet took all that money and put it into their own profit interests, and anything that they haven't done there, they have taken our military spending money and have put it into a wall that's never going to get finished. We are being depleted in order to be conquered. And so we've got to get our butts out of our heads out of our butts and stop playing this emotional game. Look at the logistics, look at the investments, look at OPEC. Because right now, OPEC, that alliance with Saudi and Russia, is in deep peril. And it was never meant to be, because dictators never share power. If you look throughout history, dictators have never shared power. They will pretend to ally together, and as soon as they get what they want, they will betray that alliance. So here's where our winning strategy comes from. We know that Russia and Saudi Arabia, that alliance is fake. that it's only there for Russia's glory, and as soon as they get everything they want, that alliance is severed. We look and we can see the Russian oil companies that have consolidated the oil wealth and LNG wealth throughout the world, and using the Trump administration using our U.S. military as a mafia negotiator, using withholding of aid in order to stop to coerce these nations into these investment schemes. We can literally see that as soon as we stop buying into the emotional drama. Ignore the emotions. Ignore them. They're not doing anything for you. Ignore the political party games. Let the Congress, all your Congresses battle it out. It's just words. It's wordplay. It's distraction. Ignore it. Look at the investment deals. The investment deals are wide open, and they can only hide under an emotional distraction. So ignore that. See the investment deals. See what's happening. See how the government-controlled corporations are involved in this, which are owned by Russia government and owned by China government, and then start filing war crime charges against these dictators who are using these things in order to attack right in front of our faces the United States of America and NATO nations and anyone else, and pretty much Saudi Arabia is going to be next because that alliance is severing. But at the end, if you can fast forward, if you're looking at market research analysis and you're looking at trend cycles and you're looking at patterns, you're going to see with that China foreign investment law, there is a forbidden nation list loophole that lets China, Chairman Xi, shut out any nation investor that he wants. So even if OPEC is able to gain control, even if Russia is able to gain controlling interest of the entire energy resource of the entire world, China is going to control everything because of that technocracy that they're creating with their cyber tech giants that are now monopolizing the cyber tech industries. And they're also going to be able to control the global wealth because they have that loophole that lets them shut out any nation they want who does not comply by Xi's wishes. And if you look at Xi's wishes and how he treats his people in Asia, it is terrible. If you look at his concentration labor camps and the rules that will get people put into those education reform camps, they're awful. Anything that is about free will and anything about religious practices is punished. Every single religious practice. So if the world doesn't get its head out of its butt and start filing these war crime charges against these dictators, we're all going to be under the power of a communist dictator who is treating his people right now like fodder, that he just doesn't care. And he is destroying his own people in order to have that power. Yes, it is insidious. Yes, it is evil. The fact that somebody could see their own people that way is something that is beyond human comprehension, but we have to realize that that's going on. And if China could talk to us, if they were released from that monitoring and that control of their voices, they would be telling us that their leader is no good. He's not good for us. He's not good for them. So that is your strategy. Ignore all the political party crap here in the United States. It's all rich people. Rich people trying to regain that, it's trying to control that power. Rich people have allied together. Rich people who were told that if they did this for China and Russia, they would have consolidation of wealth and power. People who have money constantly want more money. It is a mistress. It is never satisfied, and it always wants more. That's why the typical scenario, the typical, the saying is money is the root of all evil. Because of that appetite that it creates, that it's never satisfied and it's never enough. So that is your webinar. That's your strategy. I'm going to now start going more into the healing side, because whenever you're dealing with a situation where people feel betrayed, you're going to have the grief effects happen. The same grief, the denial, the anger, the betrayal, like all of that. And that's what's going to be happening as soon as we start recognizing what's going on. People are going to feel betrayed, and we're at our most fragile point we'll ever be at that time. So I'm giving you everything I know, telling you what to look for. Ignore the emotions. Look at the investment deals. It's all wide open. Look at the real estate investment deals happening, the dumping of assets of Chinese billionaires here in the United States, all of their real estate assets, all those luxury skyscrapers. It's not just Anbang. It's all of the Chinese billionaires are dropping their assets. And so we have a conflict of interest real estate investor, POTUS, and his family, who are all real estate investors, including Kushner, who has gotten in financial financial problems, was bailed out by Blackstone right before Trump took the inauguration. We have all that happening right in front of us, but we can't see it because we're playing this stupid party game up here. We're distracted. Ignore that. Real estate, firearm, healthcare, education, everything is right there. I follow all the markets. So your market research analysis from me is to follow the markets, and then you'll see the trends, you'll see the patterns, and then once you understand it, file those war crime charges. 18 U.S.C. 2441. It's a Hogue. I think it's Hogue Act, Hague, but is a direct attack against the United States of America. And because we are in World War III, we have been for several years, it is a war crime.